Hey lovelies, you're welcome to reviews and recaps. So yes, the reunion part one. It was definitely explosive, I would say that. So at the start, the cast members were pulling up to the reunion, and so Carlos showed up in Kimmy and Maurice's dressing room, basically asking what was their goal for tonight. Kimmy was like, she's just gonna sit back and watch the fireworks. I'm like, okay, per usual. So Carlos, walked into Miss Wanda and Tisha and Miss O's room and saw Miss Wanda and said they were twinning. I was like, okay. They even did like a little dance together. I was just like, yeah, shake my head, man. I don't know what this is about. But anyways, Carlos was basically saying that this season was very explosive and that Miss Wanda was responsible for the dynamite. So look what Miss Tisha did. Miss Tisha jumped in and then said, you know who's responsible? The one with the Mr. T chain on. I'm like, okay, Tisha, that's not even funny. Give it a break, whatever. So anyways, Carlos walks into Melody's room and said to Melody that the goal for tonight is love. I'm like, okay, that's shady as hell, but okay. And then Melody and was asking if that was Melody's goal as well. Anyways, Miss Melody was like, if they go low, she's going to hell. And I'm like, okay, let's say less. Carlos walked into Maurice's room, asked him what his goal is for the reunion. Maurice basically said his goal is to answer every question. And I'm like, you don't want to avoid questions like you always do. You want to be direct and honest because last season everyone called you out for being a liar. Okay, Maurice. Over on the other side, in Mattel's room, Carlos walked in whilst he was on the phone to Cherie. She by Cherie, she by Sheehan. Anyways, Carlos was like, is that Cherie? Let me speak to her. I'm like, okay, Carlos, alrighty. So Carlos asked Cherie, is there anything that we need to know about Mattel that I should know? Did you guys see Mattel? Mattel looked so nervous. He kept shifting in his chair. Anyway, Sheree did the thing that she was paid to do and said, he's the perfect gentleman. He's funny. He's a good guy. He's a great dad. He's not what you see on TV. He's not like what you see on TV. I'm like, Mattel then said, you gonna get a ring for that. I'm like, ooh. Bro, did a ring stop you from cheating and spreading your seed? No, it didn't. So getting a ring from you is not a prize, honey. And I hope Sheree ain't stupid enough to really believe that he's the prize. Like, Sheree, I hope you're smarter than this. Anyways, moving forward, I'm actually convinced that Sheree was introduced to try and make Mattel a bit more likable with the viewers, but I'm buying it. None of it, honey. None of it. Anyways, let's talk the fashions, honey. I loved Melody's outfit. She looked absolutely beautiful. I love that the outfit was given bulletproof, especially because this whole season they were coming at her and she's had to carry the whole season on her back. So yeah, it was very much given bulletproof, honey. I was not feeling Kimmy's outfit at all. Like, that outfit just needed to be shoved down the toilet. It was not doing it. The wig, that color was not doing it for her. The makeup just wasn't working. Like, I know what I think it was supposed to give, but it did not give what it was meant to give. So that's a no for me. Tisha looked pretty as always. She's a very pretty girl. The dress was nice. It was a decent fit. I also thought who was it? I think it was Kiki. Yes, Kiki also looked fabulous as well. But we'll come to her in a second. But in my opinion, Miss Melody Cherie, yeah, that outfit was fitting for the reunion. She came ready to slay these dragons. So over in the introduction, Carlos was introducing everyone one by one. Kimmy and Maurice first, Maso and Tisha, then Mattel, then Miss Melody Cherie, honey. So Melody came through in her beautiful dress. Carlos introduced Melody as Melody Cherie, and Mattel was like, "Halt!" I'm like, bro, she divorced you, honey. Quit it. She does not want to be associated with the name Holt. Do you hear me, Mattel? Anyways, did you see Melody looking like the superstar that she is? Like, she just looked gorgeous. I looked over at Mattel's face and he looked like, ooh, she fine. I want that thing back, but okay. So then Carlos moved over to talking about how everyone has been doing their thing and they've done so much in the last 6 years to be successful and all of that deserves praise. So the cast were pretty much just like clapping and stuff. Melody was silent. So Carlos was like, no clap. And Miss Melody was not having any of it. She was like, I praised everyone last year, but it didn't air on the show. This year I'm good. I really don't care what people are doing. Bruh. Did you see Tisha's face when she said that? One thing I got from this reunion was that Melody was not there for the shenanigans. She just was not there for it. She just looks like, yeah, I'm not here for this. I'm just here because I have to show up. And I'm going to show up, do what I was paid to do, and head out, okay? So Maurice then began his speech talking about he's proud of everyone sitting on the stage. Last year, he was proud of them. This year, he's proud of them. Melody was like, good for you. Marvelous. Make sure your actions show that. I'm like, oop, oop. When she said that, I hollered. I was like, what? Girl, Melody did not come to play. Marie said, my actions do show that. I downloaded your songs talking about my guy and I played them so it would get streams. Mattel was like, why would you play her get in songs? You know, and Maurice was basically like going on this speech talking about, you know, it's difficult to do what we do. What the viewers are looking at is success in spite of perseverance, blah, blah, blah. Carlos looked over to Melody and said, Melody, you look like you don't care for all that he's saying right now. Melody was honestly just over there sighing, man. She was not having any of it. I personally think she's done with the BS. Like, the Scots constantly come for her in their confessionals, in interviews, all the time. But now, at the reunion, they are all acting cool and want her to act as cool as a cucumber. But she's like, no, she is over it, and I would be too. I just wish that she didn't look so irritated being there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wish her face was a little bit more like, you know, friendly and smiley while she's reading them for filth, because I feel like they actually did and do deserve it. Okay? Anyways, Carlos was like, Melody, is what Marie's saying BS? And then Melody was like, well, he's giving us, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. speeches. I'm like, ooh, ooh, oop, oop. When I say Melody was not with the shenanigans, honey, she was not with the shenanigans. Kimi so basically then said, is there anything that has transpired that is making you say, let your actions show it? Melody was like, yeah. So apparently Maurice and Kimi did an interview recently, and Melody was like, oh, she didn't like how they tried to downplay that her and Kimi don't have a relationship off camera. He's like, Kimi and her had never really had a problem, so she doesn't like appreciate how it's made to seem like they aren't really friends. And then Carlos was like, what did you say, Maurice? When I say I love the direct questioning that Carlos was giving the people to this reunion, like, he's getting better as a host. I remember at first I wasn't a fan, but with this reunion, I'm like, okay, it's okay for him to host it because he's starting to ask the direct questions. And I am absolutely here for it. Kimi was like, can I interject? Like she always says. So she was basically saying, like, you know, the particular interview, she felt like social media made it more than it was. And that Kimi was like, Melody has done interviews in the past saying, like, we're not like hangout friends. But Melody then said that the words that were used made it seem like her and Kimi don't really talk, which she did not appreciate. So Carlos then asked Kimi, do you consider Melody a friend? And then Kimmy paused and I'm like, Then Kimmy was like, well, the people on the show are not really my besties, but I think Melody is a friend. Then she tried to clean it up by saying, absolutely. I'm like, girl, which is it? You think she's a friend or she is a friend? What is it? Like, sis, speak your truth and stand by it, honey. Anyway, she tried to like clean it up. I could tell that Melody was hurt because you could see that even in her response, she was pretty much trying to downplay the relationship that her and Melody have. So then Kimmy tried to clean it up by saying like, when I needed something, it happened. The phone calls, the flowers, the referrals, the food, the check-in. So essentially, this babe was there for you when you needed her. And you have the audacity to downplay it and say, oh, I think Melody is a friend. Really, sis? Really? Like, even your so-called Tisha and all your people, did they call you when you were going through stuff? Did anyone really check in on you like that? I think not, because why wouldn't Tisha communicate to Marceau that it was cancer? If she was really checking in on you like that, they both would have been checking in on you like that, but they didn't. Anyways, going back to Tisha and Marceau. So Carlos began to ask about Scott Manor, aka the new Chateau Charest. And apparently people are calling it Neverland. That actually was so funny. I was like, Neverland? Like, ooh. I really hope they sort it out ASAP because people are not here for it. Anyways, they had their own little speech that, good things take time, ETCs, whatnot. So Carlos moved over to the conversation about how Tisha is the majority shareholder of Scott and how did that happen. So she was basically saying that she bought Mattel out for like pennies, blah, blah, blah. Then she tried to throw shade at Mattel, basically saying like, when she picked it up, it was in the negatives and it's now a multi-million-dollar company. And Mattel was not having it. Mattel was like, yeah, if anything, you should be thanking me because I helped start a company to do exactly what Holt and Holt is doing. And then it takes a company like 4 to 5 years to see growth. There's nothing new for someone to say it was in the negative when it started and now it's $1 million business. That is what the building, that's what happens when you build a business. Holt and Holt was the same thing. So Carlos looked over to Melody and asked for her opinion on the subject. And Melody was basically saying like, she didn't know what the numbers were at the time when Scott was sold, when Mattel was bought out of Scott. But she knows that with her connections from being in the industry for so many years, she was making sure that Scott was getting good contracts and she has proof of that. I was like, oop, guess what? No one denied it. No one said it's not true. Everyone kept quiet because they know that is facts. And you might not like Melody. You might think she's a mean girl. But one thing she does not do, she gives you the facts. And she's not out here playing people the way Tisha and Marceau try to play people. Like, how can you try to make it seem like, oh yeah, it was in the negatives and, nothing was really happening. When you start a business, there's so much running cost when you first start and so many things. So it does take a few years to break even and then to become a particular point. But if the beginning wasn't great, it's usually a struggle for it to even pick up that quickly. So for her to be making it seem and like trivializing what was done and the assistance of Mattel and Melody indirectly is not right. And those are the sorts of games that these people play, which I don't appreciate. I would rather someone that brings the facts and does not try to play us like we're not intelligent. Anyway, so Carlos started asking about the lawsuit with Scott and another corporation and asked if they were able to share any light on this. So I'd heard about this so-called lawsuit on the internet, on like with some of the YouTube bloggers who covered it. And so I was like really curious to see if it would be discussed on the show. So I'm glad that, Carlos brought it up. But like always, they avoided the question and sort of diverted the attention away. Now, Carlos, you're doing good. You're doing way better than you have done in the past. But I need you to reel people back in when they misdirect the question, okay? Because sometimes when you ask questions, people tend to go off on a different tangent when they're trying to avoid answering the question. So a really good host and interviewer would have to know how to redirect the question back and make them answer. So that's the only constructive thing I would say about Carlos. But you might be like, oh, how does she know this? Well, part of what I've done and still do involves interviewing people on a day-to-day basis outside of this channel. So I know what I'm talking about. So in the interest of misdirection, Miss Tisha was like, well, everything was just really difficult. And that's why Maso really needed, just time away and went to Africa. Mattel was like, did you say that's why he went to Africa? I chuckled. I'm like, Mattel was just there for all the fun and games, man. One thing about Mattel is he will tell on everybody, bruh. Like, he will insinuate stuff. He will not come out and say it, but he will insinuate it continuously. So Mattel was like, he took time away from home. Tisha was like, well, he wasn't at the gym. I'm like, is that supposed to be shade or insult? Girl, the gym in Africa is one and the same, honey. If nobody tells you, I will tell you, allegedly. So Carlos asked her, like, how did she feel when she found out he was going to be going to Africa by herself? She said she was upset because, they've always talked about going to Africa together, but she trusts her husband. I'm like, okay. So Carlos asked Kimmy, like, would you be okay if Maurice was going to Africa by himself? She did not even let Carlos finish. She was like, no. I'm like, yes, girl. Me and you both, honey. Carlos proceeded to say, and this really got me. She's like, you're obviously very smart. You have multiple degrees. But she said a statement, basically, which is very naive, which was when she basically said that if Maso is cheating on her, God will reveal it to her. Tisha was like, well, all these rumors have been happening for years. She's not going to leave her marriage just because of rumors. Tisha is like, where are the pictures? Where are the text messages? And then Carlos was like, there was a picture of his back, allegedly. And he was like, well, it's not his back. And then Tisha said, if Mel and Mattel had any proof, they would have put it out. Mattel was like, I don't put anything out. I'm like, Mattel, you always put stuff out. You always say stuff. Even if you don't come out and say this is true, you insinuate stuff when you're angry. And then after that, it's almost like you have amnesia. Carlos was like, so don't tell me there's no doubt in your mind that it could be true. Tisha was like, she has no doubt and that she knows Mel and Mattel's personality. Mattel was like, what's my personality? Mel didn't even bother. She didn't even say nothing. She did not get involved. So next thing is like, Tisha was like, if they had any type of information, they would have put it out. And so Tisha was like, oh, even Mattel texted me that he's been with a woman for over 4 years. He bought her a Mercedes. Mattel was like, oh, did I say that? I'm like, you see what I say about Mattel? What I think is Mattel says stuff when he's angry, and then him and Maso talk about it. And then Maso tries to keep him in a happy place so that, like, he doesn't tell on him, because I know that Mattel knows where the bodies are buried. But Mattel will not say anything because the guys are always trying to keep him happy and civil. But Mattel's face and body language will tell it all. Carlos basically faced Mattel and was asking him direct questions. Do you know for a fact that Marcellus cheated on her? He kept quiet. He did not want to say anything. And then he was basically asking Melody that when she told Tisha that Maso has cheated on her, was she lying? Melody was like, no. And then Carlos was like, do you know for a fact that Maso has cheated on her? And then Melody said, let me ask you, because you've been privy to different conversations. I love how she flipped it on Carlos King, because Carlos King was also acting like he did not remember anything. And she's like, nah, bro, you ain't gonna put me out. Like, we've not talked about this before, that this has not been a conversation before. So Carlos was like, I haven't been privy to hearing another woman talk about an affair that she had with Merceau. And so Melody was like, I was on the phone with you, talking to you, and she, the alleged other woman, was here with me. This was early on, even before the first season. And apparently it was out there that the girl was apparently having an affair, allegedly, with Merceau. The girl apparently called Tisha, according to Tisha, and said she would never do that, and that Mel offered her $5,000 to come on the show, and that if it had been more, maybe she would have considered it. My thing is, didn't Tisha have an interview recently where she said Mel offered the girl $10,000 allegedly? So which is it? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it a complete lie? Are you making this whole thing up, sis? Like, tell the truth. So Melody tried to explain her side of the story and basically said that there was a girls' trip that was planned and that she does have the text messages, and she was asked if she would be willing to come on the trip, and she was going to say that she didn't know he was married and this was years ago. Melody said the girl's response was that she'll need some money. And Melody was like, talk to production. You know, you ain't gonna be talking to me about no money. Talk to production. Which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So Merceau then begins to pipe up at Melody and was saying, you know, how would Mel know what she was coming on the show to say? Mel was like, because we talked about it. We had conversations about it, duh. And then Merceau was like, how did the conversation start? And Melody was like, none of your business. And then Merceau started going at her. And then Merceau was like, if you're going to tell it, tell the full story. Melody was like, I ain't going to be going back and forth with legs, hips, and breasts, honey. I was like, oop, I chuckled at that. This was the part where I was disappointed. Carlos should have followed that up with further questions where he would have said, okay, no interruptions now. You know, let her speak. But I feel like, you know, he did not want to get to the bottom of that because part of it is going to make him seem shady, considering he was acting like he did not remember the three-way conversation with the girl allegedly. Anyways, we move. Carla said that apparently there was a conversation at the start of the season where they talked about things being off limits to be brought on the show. And Kimmy made a joke about, they should not speak about Maurice after 4 p.m. And I'm like, what is Maurice hiding? Remember, Mertel said, it's not like you guys ain't got 20 women. He wasn't talking about just Merceau. And this is what makes it so funny, because everyone is always directing it at Merceau, but no one is directing it at Maurice. And I know for a fact, I'm not going to say I know for a fact, scratch that. Allegedly, he was probably involved in it as well. So I don't understand why he doesn't get any heat, but Merceau is always getting heat. Now, I understand that Merceau is annoying and it's easy to give Merceau heat, and he definitely deserves it. But my point is, there should also be some heat for Mr. Maurice. So Carlos moved over to the issue of the rumors that there are sexual parties or sex parties at Credit One. So Kimmy was like, her office used to be at the top floor of Credit One, was upstairs, and that, you know, there were no sex parties, but like the guys like to hang out all the time. And Carlos was like, doing what? With who? And then even when he asked Kimmy direct questions about whether or not there were women when they would hang out, she couldn't even respond to that. So I'm like, sister, sounds like you are just another Tisha. It's just easy for you to hide under the radar and act like you don't know what's going on because it's not that public that Maurice does things on the side, allegedly. You know, this part got me, right? Mattel was like, she's naive too. I'm like, ooh, this is the thing about Mattel, right? In the moment, he just says stuff. His mouth is like a basket, honey. Like, he would not even know when he will spill the tea. If you just need to pay attention to this man, he will spill it. Then Merceau basically said that, you know, he was there a lot less than everyone else. But Kimmy was like, but you were there as well. And then Kimmy was like, this was before we were together. They were always having all these parties. So I'm like, So were they really having sex parties? And only, well, two of them were married, Mattel and Mercer. So what were they doing at these so-called parties? Mattel let something slip this reunion. I don't know if you guys picked it up. He was like, there are lots of things that we guys know that we will not sit down and expose. I'm like, oh, oop. Interesting. Mattel definitely knows where the bodies are buried. Honestly, he does. Carlos basically asked Mattel, have you ever known Mercer to be with other women since you've known him? Mattel said nothing. He was quiet. And Tisha jumped in and said, yes, me. I'm like, girl, shut up. But okay. But guys, did you see Mercer? I was staring at Mercer the whole time. He looked guilty. So Carlos was like, was there ever an apartment that you two owned? Mercer was like, we've never owned an apartment. We've never owned anything together. Then Maurice was like, yeah, but you did own Stag Run. I'm like, Mattel does not have a poker face. Anyways, it turns out they all owned Stag Run together, apparently. One thing that I liked that Carlos said was like, I believe there is some truth to some of the rumors. And I believe that too, because all these rumors cannot be coming from nowhere. There is something somewhere that is the truth in between everything. Now, this is what Carlos said that got me. He said to Tisha, I think you're a woman who is now learning her worth. I'm like, aka she did not know her worth before, but she is now learning. Okay. Who's now learning her worth in life. And I think you want to make sure your husband is believable, because if it ever did come to you that it is true, I don't think you'll be able to be ready to deal with the reality now. That is something I completely agree with. I feel like she wants it to seem on the public that he has not cheated so she can stay with him because she wants to stay with him. I don't think she ever wants to be alone. That's the truth. So she would rather act and pretend like she is oblivious and rather act naive, rather act like she doesn't know what's going on than stand in the truth that, yes, I know, I believe there may be some truth to it, but I ain't living my man. I'm a stake beside him. She just doesn't want to look stupid, and that's all it is. So she's going to pretend and antagonize anyone that says anything about it. So Tisha was basically like, cheating is a deal breaker for her. Well, she said non-negotiable. I'm like, okay, you mean deal breaker, but okay. So she'll most likely leave him. I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't even think you believe yourself. And Masood does not believe you because he's sitting next to you, looking guilty with a smirk on his face. So did Mattel. Mattel had a smirk on his face the whole time, which is one of those things that show when someone knows something. And that smirk on Masood's face showed that he was allegedly hiding something. My thoughts, my belief. Anyways, moving on. Tisha's cousin Kiki joined the conversation. She looks absolutely gorgeous. They are cute in the face in that family. Wanda is cute in the face. Tisha is, and Kiki is gorgeous. So they are very pretty in the family. Anyways, so they started showing like replaybacks and all of that. And I was looking at Mattel's face the whole time when they were showing the scene where Maso basically was threatening to burn the whole ish to the ground at the event when he was arguing with Kiki. Mattel's face was telling it all. He was just there like, whoo. Honestly, Mattel was the comedian I didn't know I needed at this reunion. He was just hilarious this reunion. I enjoyed watching Mattel. So Carlos asked Melody why she invited Tisha to her Christmas party. And Melody was like, first of all, I knew Kiki before I knew Tisha. We shared a mutual best friend, and I invited her to my Christmas party. And then Melody also said that she knew that Kiki's experience with Tisha was similar to what she experienced. So she thought she could bring her up so she can express that on the show. Which, this is the thing. Listening to that means she's basically saying, Tisha is always coming at me, and I know someone who has a similar experience with her. So I'm like, why not let her come on the show and tell her truth? that is the thing. She is bringing the facts. She's not out here lying and making it seem that, she wasn't trying to bring Tisha's cousin on the show to talk about it. No, she's like, I brought her on the show and that's that really. So Tisha then basically said that Kiki had previously told her that Mel knew someone at the court records and had them pull her records up. Kiki was like, I don't recall saying that. Normally, when people say they don't recall, I usually don't believe them because I just think they are lying. But something about the way Kiki says it rings true. I feel like she just doesn't want to put Tisha on blast for lying about it. So Tisha walked off, came back with 2 puppets. And she was basically insinuating that Kiki was a puppet for Mel. And I'm just like, I didn't really find the episode, that episode of her bringing the puppets hilarious, but I don't know. Let me know if you guys found it funny. Melody was like, she's been around the kids way too much. I'm like, facts, but okay. And then Carlos said to Kiki directly, he basically said he feels like she's playing double agent, which I agree. Because on the one hand, you're going and saying whatever you're saying to Mel. Then on the other hand, you're going and saying whatever you're saying to... On the other hand, you're going to say to Tisha whatever you're saying to her. So it's like, yeah, you are playing double agent. So moving forward, then Carlos basically was asking questions to Kiki about what they've dealt with. What Tisha and Marcel have dealt with in their marriage. So Kiki was basically saying that, yes, they have dealt with different things, just like, regular families do, blah, blah, blah. And so Carlos was like, like what? And then Kiki was like, yeah, like rumors of infidelity, there's speculation. Of course, like she had doubts at certain points as to whether he was cheating or not. She tried to really clean it up. She didn't try to say too much. But basically, bottom line is Tisha has had to confront the issue of infidelity in a marriage. The next thing, Tisha was like, well, this is what happened. I saw a picture of a girl on Marceau's phone, and then Martel covers his face because he's like, yo, the secret is about to be out. So I'm actually quite excited to watch the next part. I feel like this reunion part 1 is definitely the best best we've had this season, in terms of like the best episode that we've had this season. Most of the season was a snooze fest, so I think it's good for us to have like, more things to talk about and like discuss. So yeah, like, what do you guys think about the reunion? I think I definitely did not like how I felt Mel was very combative this reunion. Or at least appeared combative. I don't mind if you put people in your place and stuff, but sometimes I'm like, maybe do it while you have a smile on your face, but also I can't expect you to smile at these people. Because I'm in 2 minds, because I understand on the other hand that if someone has been coming at you one way and they've been coming at you left, right, center, you brought these people, you've helped these people all this while, and they have the audacity to come for you in that way, then at some point you have to just be like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to be around you guys. You guys are negative Nancy's. And I get that, because some days, yeah, even I can't even control the face. So, if that's what it is, that's what it was. But I just wish that Carlos allowed Melody to say certain things without letting Marceau talk over her and then interrupt us getting to the root of certain things. I'm hoping that maybe in parts 2 or 3 they go into more detail about different things. So guys, what would you rate this episode? How would you rate the reunion? Let me know in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.